Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is a 2004 film directed by Alfonso Cuarón and is the third film in the Harry Potter series. Many Harry Potter fans, including myself, consider this to be one of the best films in the series. This film brought a different director from the first two into the picture, and that, along with a shift in tone in the actual storytelling from the books, really allowed for this film to take some different and interesting avenues when telling the story. This film heightens and builds on the darker tone of the overarching story for the series, establishes more elements of the universe itself, and utilizes time as a narrative element in really interesting and effective ways. The storyline in Prisoner of Azkaban starts to deal with some of the darker aspects of building the background and future direction for the story as a whole, as both the characters and the intended audience grow older. Offering more hints into the events that lead to the Potter's death, which was the catalyst for the entire story told through the series, is one of the most apparent ways this film begins to take a darker tone. The Dementors also highlight the darker tone this movie takes perfectly, not only in their appearance, but also in their actions. They are large, dark, floating creatures who feed off of happy memories, leaving only feelings of dread and coldness behind in those they decide to hunt. When Harry confronts them, he experiences memories of the night his parents were killed, and we, as the viewers, are drawn into the darkness of these encounters by hearing his mother scream. Also, even though Voldemort is not physically in this film, it's very well established through the events of this movie that he is without a doubt influencing everyone who seems to be against the protagonists in the story. His ability to manipulate and get others to do what he wants is in some ways more frightening than if he was the one executing all of the attacks himself. In some ways, not having him make a physical showing in the third installment to the series makes the viewer more aware of his role as the antagonist because we are constantly anticipating what his next move against the main characters is going to be. Even the color palette for the film takes on a colder and darker hue by using muted blues, grays, and blacks when composing a majority of the shots. These colors are often associated with cultivating feelings of isolation, melancholy, and coldness. These feelings, I believe, are introduced with Harry learning the truth behind what really happened the night his parents died, and then built upon and given more prominence as the story evolves across the rest of the movies. Prisoner of Azkaban also introduces a lot of new characters and magical components that build on the universe, and at the time of its first release gave the audience more insight into the wizarding world. Some of the most beloved and interesting characters, Remus Lupin and Sirius Black, and their backstory or connection to Harry are introduced. To go along with this, the Marauder's map is brought into the picture, which is not only an awesome magical item, but connects to Harry's father and gives more depth to the story. The world itself is also built upon by showing the students visiting Hogsmeade, the wizarding village just outside of Hogwarts grounds. Being able to see more of the magical world the story is set in allows the viewer to be transported into that environment and gives them more insight into what it's like to exist in the Harry Potter universe. The Time Turner is another new magical item that has a huge influence on the story. The second half of the film revolves around Harry and Hermione working to change many events by using the Time Turner to go back and alter the events that had previously taken place. To expand on the use of time, the way time is showcased and manipulated is another really well thought out element of the filmmaking. Even before the viewer knows that the Time Turner will play such an important role in the plot, clocks and time are seen and referenced by the characters many times. Little things like Ron being confused how Hermione had enough time to take all the classes she signed up for, or Harry standing at the giant clock on the Hogwarts campus, as well as the more obvious uses of time when Hermione clues Harry into the Time Turner and they use it to turn back the clock to attempt to change the events from earlier in the film. The camera movement at this point in the film through the clock we had seen Harry at earlier in the film, accompanied by a ticking clock noise as they figure out where exactly they need to start to retrace their steps from earlier in the day, is another really well thought out use of time. This attention to detail is something that makes this film stand out from the other 7 Harry Potter movies in my opinion, and easily places it in a position of being my favorite out of all the series. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is without a doubt one of my favorite Harry Potter films because of how it starts to bring forward elements and storylines that become so important and influential when considering the overall narrative for the series. It also leaves us with one of the greatest quotes and lessons of the series in my opinion, from Albus Dumbledore himself. Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if one only remembers to turn on the light.